The way that I like to think about it is, you got two choices or two thought processes, right? To use a GLP or to not, right? And right now, where we stand today is I think it's like 95% of the US is metabolically unhealthy, 71% of adults are obese, right? Being metabolically unhealthy and being obese and overweight comes with right? There's problems with that, right? Metabolically unhealthy and being obese means you have some sort of inflammation. Inflammation leads to disease, right?
Hey, beautiful. Welcome back to PCOS Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lindsie, and today's episode is one that I know is going to spark some curiosity and maybe even challenge a few things you thought you knew. We're diving into a topic that has been everywhere lately, and that's GLP-1 medications. You've probably seen them all over your social media, heard about them from friends, or maybe you've even considered them yourself. But the real question is, are they actually helpful, or are we missing part of the conversation? Today, I'm joined by Zach Dansell, the Chief Operating Officer at Nava Health, a leader in functional and longevity medicine. What I love about this conversation is that it doesn't fall into extremes. It's not GLP-1s are bad or GLP-1s are the answer. Instead, we talk about what's actually true. In this episode, we dive into what GLP-1s actually do in the body and why they can be effective, where they're being misused or overused, especially online, why they should be seen as a tool, not a long-term solution, the importance of addressing the root causes, like insulin resistance, inflammation, and hormone imbalances, and how this all applies specifically to women with PCOS. We also zoom out and talk about something even bigger, the gaps in our current healthcare system, why so many women feel dismissed, and why a more personalized root cause approach is so necessary. If you've ever felt confused about GLP-1s or wondered if they're right for you, this episode is going to give you a much clearer, more grounded perspective. As always, the content shared on PCOS Unfiltered is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are not intended to serve as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or treatment plan. The information shared is based on personal experience and expert interviews and is not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Now let's get into it. Here is my conversation with Zach Dansell. Hello. Welcome back and welcome to Zach to the show, to PCOS Unfiltered. I'm excited about this because the GLP-1 conversation comes up here and there, but I think this is going to be the first episode really kind of more dedicated to that conversation. So let's just kind of dive in. If you want to tell us, what you do, more about Nava Health and kind of how that was born, based out of some experiences that you had.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's always a pleasure. My name is Zach Dansell. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Nava Health. We are a functional longevity medicine clinic. We operate a couple brick and mortars, but we're telemedicine in 15 states. But we take a data-driven root cause approach to personalized medicine, right? Everybody in the world has their own unique biology, their own, medical history, their own, detox pathways that, basically, we take health and personalize it to treat you as an N of one, right? As you should, right? It's completely different than the cookie cutter model, the conventional way where, it's very reactive disease management model, right? Our goal is to be proactive, right? To be preventative, to optimize your health so that you can prevent, any future chronic disease because we know, of the leading causes of death, 80% of them can be prevented. And the ways to prevent them aren't that difficult, right? Yeah, a lot of my lifestyle modifications, so do a lot of education there. But we aren't just your diagnostic company, right? I guess we can put it that way. There's a ton of them popping up, which is both good and bad, but it still leaves people, guessing for themselves, right? They get this AI summary of what their labs mean, and people didn't go to medical school, right? Majority of people, right? They're not doctors, so it's hard for them to understand that. And the systems just aren't built great, well enough to really help people really break that down. So we do all the advanced diagnostics that you can think of. But we also pair it with an actual medical team that you can talk to and work with and put together and work together for that personalized plan for you, right? Because we take a very different approach. We spend more time with our clients. Average visits are 30 to 60 minutes, so that we can really get to know who you are as an individual, what your lifestyle is, what's your diet, what's your exercise, how's your sleep, how are you managing stress, what's your community like. Those five key pillars are foundational, right? Before you do any of these cool biohacks and longevity trends that you're seeing on podcasts or social medias, you gotta nail down these five key pillars, right? They're just non-negotiable. Because if you don't have any of those, like those are foundational, and when you don't have a solid foundation, your house is shaky, right?
Mhm.
So the biohacks and longevity trends are great, but those are add-ons, right? Those are tools that you can bring on to help optimize, right? That you can help utilize to help support those foundational pillars, but you have to nail those down. So we work with clients on that to really focus and encompass, whole body wellness. We're not just, narrowed in on one area, but we also not only have the providers, we also offer the treatments, right? So you get your diagnostics, you get to meet with professionals that have all the training in this space, both nurse practitioners, doctors, and nutritionists. We pair you up with both of them. But then also we have the treatments, right? So that's another vertical that, we're not going to just like leave you empty-handed. We're not just going to give you results and have you fend for yourself. We're not just going to put you with the provider who's going to read you the results and then, what do I do with it from here? But then we also have what you could do to move forward with, whether it is, hormone therapy, whether it is peptide therapy, whether it is, weight loss or GLP-1s or, targeted supplements to, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're deficient in, right? So we've created this ecosystem, so that you don't have to go to all these different places. So that's who Nava is. That's what we do. Um, but to, give you the background of Nava, Nava was actually founded because about 15 years ago, my mom got super sick, um, stuck in bed, bedridden, um, saw specialist after specialist. They did what specialist or conventional traditional medicine does, right? You go
Yes.
in, you have an average 7 to 10 minute visit. Most of that time is introductions and catching up or whatever it is. And then you quickly give them your symptoms and they quickly write a prescription, right? So no true discovery, no true diagnostics to really uncover the root cause. Um, and she was just getting worse and worse. And she was on 20 medications. She couldn't get out of bed. Her organs were failing. Her immune system had just failed her, because she was just overwhelmed with everything that she had going on. To where finally the doctors were like, "We don't know what's going on." They kind of just threw their hands up, but we can make her comfortable. And so my dad didn't like that answer, and decided that he was going to take everything into his own hands and went out searching and found a functional medicine provider who did things very differently than what we were used to back then. But, fast forward today, it's like, why wasn't it like that in the beginning? But, this functional medicine provider took time, right? Did an extensive workup on her medical history to truly understand who she is as an individual, right? Spent time with her to ask the questions. What's your diet like? Right? What's your exercise like? What's your sleep routine? How are you managing your stress? No doctors ask that question, right? Go to your primary care. They don't ask it because, one, they're not taught about it in school. 80% of medical school systems don't require nutrition. And it's just not what they're taught, right? They're taught the standard of care. A client comes in with XYZ symptoms, you write them this prescription. That's the standard of care. You have to follow it. If you don't follow it, your license is at risk, right? So they follow that to the T. And this doctor didn't do that, right? Took the time, was spent time with her before making any recommendations, before prescribing any medications. Then did extensive workups, right? Comprehensive labs to assess not just her estrogen levels, but her testosterone, her free and total testosterone, her DHEA, her cortisol, her progesterone, full thyroid panels, not just your TSH, right? Looked at free T3, free T4, reverse T3, all thyroid antibodies. And we're just like, wow, like this is so much information. She hadn't given us an answer yet, but we were like, she's doing some digging, right? Maybe she's onto
Hmm.
something. And at this point, we were just looking for some hope. And, finally, after doing the discovery, going through the medical history, understanding her lifestyle, running comprehensive labs, she was finally able to pull the strings together and look at the body as a whole and the different systems to see, where things were failing and why, she was feeling the way that she was. She had probably 10, 12 different autoimmune diseases that just overwhelmed her system. Her body wasn't detoxing, and she just couldn't fend off, the pain or the inflammation anymore. And she said, I know what's wrong. I can help. I just need you to follow my guidance. And we're going to, it's going to be a process, right? You know, think about all the years that it took for you to get to where you're at today, right? There isn't going to be a magic pill, right? This is going to take hard work. It's going to take sacrifice. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days, but I can help. And, so she did, she followed along her guidance, the protocols, right? Personalized to her. It wasn't a cookie cutter model. And slowly but surely, she started getting better and better and better. Fast forward to today, 15 years later, she's still here. She has the energy to watch my three little kids. She can get up and do things. Now, obviously, autoimmune diseases aren't curable, but they can be managed. So she,
Hmm.
she has a much different lifestyle than when she was stuck in bed. Like she can actually get up and have a life. And when we saw this, my dad was just like, why isn't this everywhere? Why isn't this the standard way that doctors practice medicine? Um, and so we saw the gaps in the conventional system. We saw the issues that insurance, companies, what they lack and what they have. Not just through my mom, but there was a time period with Nava where we took insurance for a little bit as a hybrid insurance model. But they quickly were like, we don't want to participate in this,
Yeah.
right? This isn't what we're in business for because they saw the impact that we were having. We actually met with some of their medical directors and showed them just the results that we were having on clients, the reduction in all cause mortality, the decreased risk in cardiovascular disease, breast cancer, just all these different things, and they were just like, this isn't, it's just not how we're built. Um, that could be a whole episode in itself.
Yeah.
Uh, but so my dad decided to go out and say, left his previous business, liquidated the whole thing, which was nothing to do with medical. He has no medical background. I don't. Mine is through training alongside with my providers that are here today. Um, but he left a debt management, debt consolidation company to basically go all in this, right? To start a business that could help people like my mom who have been searching for answers, yet the traditional conventional medical system failed her and many others as they still do today. So we created Nava, opened up our doors 12 years ago. We've seen 65,000 clients to date and climbing and getting ready to expand. Like I said, we're located with 4 brick and mortars in the DMV area, licensed in 15 states, but I would say probably over the next 12 to 24 months, we'll be nationwide.
That's awesome. Love that. Yeah, I mean it's funny because I've had like two experiences now just since last night. We had a friend that was in the ER yesterday for dizziness in her 30s. Um, and what happens? They give her fluids. Like she's actually asking questions about her labs and all these things, and then it's like they treat her like she's crazy.
Yeah.
And then she gets discharged with vertigo. She was never nauseous, like she's like, this doesn't make any sense. So they just like, okay, and I get it. I was in the ER side too. And that's also why I was reminded why I got out of it. Because
Yeah,
like, why are they not digging? Why is this healthy 30-some-year-old woman coming in, like saying that she's almost passed out? It's not going away, but all of her labs are normal, it's fine. And then yeah, and then like this morning actually I saw my gynecologist and it was fine, but it's our traditional healthcare system looks at that one system. Like you said, they're so specialized. Your mom was going to all these specialists, so they don't look at that whole picture, and they're not trained to
they're
either.
not.
So
And it's crazy to think that, right? I mean, think about how a how siloed dentistry is, right?
mhm,
Your mouth is still a part of your body, right?
yeah,
Why are dentists not treated at the same level as an MD or a DO,
mhm,
right? Because the
yeah,
mouth has its own microbiome. The mouth is a lot of the places where things start. Cardiovascular disease,
yeah,
is one of the driving causes is through gum disease, right? And systemic inflammation. So it's like the traditional medical system, right, broke all these different areas of health out to be specialties and individualized where they're just so honed in on that one
mhm.
specialty, yet it all interacts and plays with each other, right? You
It
have to be
does.
able to look at the whole ecosystem, right?
Yeah,
How the gut affects the brain, how the gut affects the heart, how how your immune system, right? 80% of it lives in your gut, right? It's how are
mhm,
you not looking at all of that and but then you also, kind of step back, take a look. The chronic disease is at all-time high. We are metabolically unhealthy. We're spending more and more in healthcare every single year, yet we are one of the sickest nations
sickest.
in the world. Um, Most people think about it and like, how is that working? Well, I can tell you the system is not set up for health, right? The
Mhm,
system, focuses on bottom line. And one way they can do that is that they do a great job in extending life, but they don't do a great job in creating healthy life. Right? Especially the big change in that turnaround of helping extending life was antibiotics. Um, but, going back to the system, right? Big pharma, insurance companies, big food, right? It's this triangle that creates this hamster wheel. That big food creates a problem. You go to, your primary care, they prescribe the medication, and then you're on that medication for life, right? They're not
mhm,
solving anything. They're not treating any root causes. They're putting band-aids over symptoms that, um, again, was taught in the medical school. So this is what they're taught to guide. So to a point, it's like can't blame the doctors, especially the new ones, until they get out of it, have some experience in themselves, and then if they're still in it, a couple years, 5, 10 years, you're kind of like, okay, you just brainwashed. Are you not
yeah,
looking to like really open your eyes to see what's going on here? Um, it's kind of crazy to think about, but that's also why Nava Health is around, right? Because
yeah,
that's not something that we want to participate in, right?
yeah,
Functional longevity medicine saved my mom's life, and it's evolved since we started from helping people with chronic illnesses, but now, helping people who are healthy, right? General wellness that want to be proactive, want to be preventative,
mhm,
because that's where it should be. We shouldn't be waiting until we get sick to go to the doctor. We should be going to the doctor before we get sick because we have the tools at our disposal to prevent, right? To be healthier, to extend lifespan, to reduce your risk of all-cause mortality in these chronic diseases that are just plaguing our nation. But, there's a lot of education about it, right? Lifestyle changes are not something that are easy to do.
yeah,
It takes a lot of time. I mean, think just decades and decades we've just been fed misinformation, and just now really has been a turning point, especially since COVID, where people are now opening their eyes, right? They're
yeah,
questioning, which is great. I love, right? It's okay to question your doctor, right? Doctors are not perfect. Doctors are just like me and you, right? They're regular individuals who they went to school for a specialty. So yeah, they should be
mhm,
experts and professionals in that. but they're not going to have all the answers. There's only so much that they can keep in their head, which is
Yeah.
where I think AI is going to be a huge um, tool in healthcare, right? I don't think it's going to
Hmm.
replace uh, providers. I think it'll reduce a lot of administrative work and downtime and help speed things up. But the speed to a client coming into the door saying they have XYZ symptoms, being able to assess the labs and really look at the whole system, right? The speed in which a provider is going to be able to make the recommendation is going to be almost instantaneous versus weeks or months of that provider going to do their own research or just
Yeah.
operating based off of their memory or their own experience, right?
Hmm.
AI, we're going to be able to harness all of the great, smartest, greatest minds, all of the data, all of the studies to just continue to refine and refine to really, make sure what we're getting ready to recommend is the best possible solution to give the best possible outcomes. And that's how
Right.
we're utilizing AI at Nava Health.
That's awesome. So yeah, let's flip it over to the GLP-1 conversation.
Yeah, I love that.
So you see that a lot, obviously, in the practice. So from your perspective, where do you see GLP-1s being helpful? And then maybe on the other side, where are they being misused?
Yeah, so um, the way that I like to think about it is, you got two choices or two thought process, right? To use a GLP or to not, right? And right now, where we stand today is I think it's like 95% of the US is metabolically unhealthy, 71% of adults are obese, right? Being metabolically unhealthy and being obese and overweight comes with problem, right? There's problems with that, right? Metabolically unhealthy and being obese means you have some sort of inflammation. Inflammation leads to disease, right? So you kind of have to weigh out the risk, right?
Mhm.
Going on the medication and losing weight because these GLPs, they are effective, right? When done properly and when done with professionals that actually know how to properly dose you, right? It should be a personalized dose. You shouldn't just be following what everyone else is doing or what your favorite influencer is saying to do. Um, because you're not them. You have a different biology than them. You have different weight goals than them. How you absorb nutrients and medications are going to be different than them. So your dose needs to be personalized to you. Um, I think it's not just about taking the medication itself. It's about the whole lifestyle factors, right? You
Mhm.
could take the medication and sure, yeah, it's going to drop your appetite, right? But depending on your dose, depending on what you're eating, it can come with gnarly side effects. At the end of the day, this is still medicine. These medications are powerful and they can be extremely beneficial. So I love them when used properly. But at the end of the day, they are a tool, not the solution,
Mhm.
right? So then the other side, right, is if you don't take the GLPs, staying metabolically unhealthy, staying obese, right? The risk that comes with, right? So we're definitely in the camp of in support of using GLPs when necessary, right? When utilized properly, right? To get GLPs with us, you have to go through our process of meeting, giving us your medical history, doing labs, meeting with the provider for them to say, okay, yes, this is the right path for you. But what you're seeing online, I think it's super dangerous where people are just able to buy these medications off the web without even talking to a provider, to for them to truly understand what that person's lifestyle looks like, what's their diet, their exercise, how are other areas of their health playing an impact as to why they're metabolically unhealthy, why they need these GLPs. Um, I think that's scary, and I think that's the complete wrong way to go about things. Um, Now, obviously, there's companies out there that see it as a great opportunity to bring in some cash. Um, you know, but that's not why Nava was created. Nava was created to truly deliver and transform how medicine is practiced, right? True personalization, right? We're not just going to put you on a GLP and send you on your way. you're going to be working, you're in a program with us. For as long as you're on that medication, you're in a program with us, consistently meeting with our providers, meeting with our nutritionists. We hire CNSs, which are functionally trained nutritionists that have masters or PhD level degrees. So, they take nutrition as approach as, a medical side, medical nutrition, right? Not just meal plans, counting macros, but no, truly utilizing your medical history, your labs on how we can now take this powerful drug and give you the best outcomes to help you achieve your goals, right? And again, I'm going to go back to this is a tool, not a solution. You shouldn't be saying, "Oh, I'm just going to be on this for the rest of my life." No, our goal is to utilize the tool as, a jump start, a kick start. You can lose a lot of weight very, 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 very quick and get to your goal. But then what happens when you come off of that, right? Did you change your behaviors, right? Did you change how you're eating, how you food? Um, and just there's so many other things that could be causing you to have this extra weight, right? Whether it is someone who has PCOS, right? GLPs are great for PCOS, but again, how are you utilizing it, right? Are you also supporting the other mechanisms that are happening when women have PCOS, right? Because it's not just about being overweight. It's about the blood sugar regulation, insulin sensitivity, inflammation, your detox pathways, right? So, you got to think about everything else that is going on that not just the GLP-1s, the GLP-1s can help with a lot of those. But it's also not just about the weight, right? How are your hormones, right? How can we optimize your hormones to help improve insulin sensitivity, right?
Mhm.
And so going back to the GLPs, we see them as tools, not solutions. I think they're great. They're super powerful. We see amazing results. But what's happening out there right now, I think is a little scary. It's, people think that they're doctors themselves because, now they have Chat GPT, which
Yeah.
is another thing. But no, I think they're great tools. We love them when used properly and when done, side by side with experts that know how to utilize these and can
Mhm.
eventually get you off of them. But no, I think they're great.
Yeah. What's kind of like the average time span that you're seeing for women to be on it?
Yeah, so um, obviously it's going to be dependent on what their goals are.
Hmm.
Um, we'll definitely, just to at least to start, the program starts 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but most of the time people are extending to 6 months, and then after 6 months, that's, where we're not looking just to drop weight as fast as possible. We want to do it healthy, right?
Yeah.
Over time, so that when you do come off of it, you're not just going to bounce back up, and we have the time to kind of correct the behaviors, as well as the other areas of health, reducing inflammation,
Mhm.
helping, clear the detox pathways. But then after that, after 6 months, we typically see, some people go on some microdoses, again, as they're
Okay.
coming off of it, putting them on a microdose to help, continue to train the behaviors, so that it's just not a complete shock. But I would say anywhere between 6 to 9 months, with actual going through the full protocols and microdosing is what we're seeing.
Hmm. And you're seeing some great results, I'm sure, with all of
Oh,
that.
yeah, I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen within 6 months, I mean, we've seen people lose hundreds of pounds. I mean, it's
Wow.
been quite powerful. Obviously, if they have more weight, it's a lot more to work with to come
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
But just to again, I mean, it's a super powerful drug on how it's able to drop appetite and help just the other areas of health that it's helping with reducing the inflammation, helping with joint pain so that people can be more active, right? Can
Mhm.
start, doing daily walks. We've seen some people that just they're in so much pain that they
Mhm.
can't do those things. That also, plays a part in why they're metabolically unhealthy, right? We
Yeah.
have to be active. We can't be sedentary.
Yeah. It kind of like breaks the cycle, because when you're overweight and joints hurt, yeah, you're not wanting to go out and walk or do some
Yeah.
easy
stretches
Yeah.
and move your body. Yeah.
And there's other benefits that we're seeing, and a lot of other people are reporting on, just not just the weight loss factor, right? But just the neuroprotection that you get from it. Obviously, we're talking about the inflammation, the anti-inflammatory effect that it has, the protection that it has for cardiovascular health. So there's a lot, like, again, these are powerful tools. What a lot of people just kind of see them as weight loss, which, like I said, it does a great job, but there are plenty of other benefits that, we can utilize while we're correcting the other things, right? And optimizing the other, areas in the body.
If there's one thing I want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. There is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to your health. Not a medication, not a supplement, not a protocol you saw online, and that includes GLP-1s. For some people, they can be incredibly helpful, a tool that helps break a cycle, reduce inflammation, and create momentum. But like we talked about today, they are just that, a tool. Because if the underlying patterns don't change, your nutrition, your stress, your sleep, your relationship with your body, then nothing truly changes long term. And that's the work we focus on here. Understanding your body, learning how to support it, and creating changes that actually last. So whether this episode gave you clarity, confirmed something you were already feeling, or even just opened your mind to a different perspective, I want you to sit with that. Get curious, ask questions, and most importantly, advocate for yourself. Remember, your healing isn't about finding the quick fix. It's about finding what actually works for you. If you loved this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next. Share this with someone who's been thinking about GLP-1s, and leave a review so more women can find these conversations. And as always, if you're ready to go deeper and take a more personalized root cause approach to your health, you can find all the ways to work with me in the show notes. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode of PCOS Unfiltered. Nourish, heal, thrive.